Marie Antoinette's final horror was not the guillotine. It was what France did to her before she reached it. By the time the blade fell on October 16, 1793, the former queen had already been stripped of almost everything that made her human in the eyes of the world. Her crown, her husband, her children, her privacy, her name, her dignity, and finally, her identity. She was no longer addressed as queen. She was no longer treated as Marie Antoinette. She became prisoner number 280. That was the horror. France did not simply execute her. It broke her down first. It locked her inside a damp prison cell watched day and night by guards. It separated her from her children. It turned her motherhood into a weapon against her. It dragged her through a courtroom where the verdict was already written. It cut her hair, bound her hands, dressed her in the plain white garment of the condemned, and carried her through the streets of Paris in an open cart so the crowd could witness the fall of the woman they had been taught to hate. The guillotine ended her life, but the humiliation before it was designed to erase her. This is not a story about defending monarchy. It is not a story about pretending Marie Antoinette was innocent of every blindness of her class. It is a story about what happens when a revolution stops seeing a person and starts needing a symbol to destroy. By 1793, Marie Antoinette was no longer being judged only for what she had done. She was being punished for everything France had suffered: hunger, debt, war, resentment, royal excess, foreign influence, and the collapse of an old world. The revolution needed a villain, and it chose her. If you are drawn to the darker corners of history, subscribe to Grimmer History and help us reach 45,000 subscribers. Every story here uncovers what the past tried to hide behind power, ceremony, and silence. Tonight, we enter the final 76 days of Marie Antoinette. The palace is gone. The court is gone. Her husband is dead. Her son has been torn from her arms. And in a prison nicknamed the waiting room of the guillotine, the last queen of France is being prepared for a death that had already been decided before her trial began. In the early hours of August 2, 1793, while Paris still slept beneath a heavy silence, Marie Antoinette was removed from the Temple prison. The guards did not come with mercy. They came with an order. She had already lost her husband. Louis XVI had been executed in January. Her crown had vanished. Her court had vanished. The Palace of Versailles, once the theater of French monarchy, had become part of another life, almost impossible to believe. But the cruelest loss was still fresh. Her son, Louis Charles, had been taken from her. He was only a child. To the revolutionaries, he was the former Dauphin, a dangerous symbol of royal continuity. To his mother, he was simply her boy. When he was torn from her, something deeper than royal pride broke inside her. She had endured public hatred. She had endured captivity. She had endured the execution of her husband. But the separation from her child became the wound that never stopped bleeding. Now she was being taken again, not to freedom, not to trial yet, to the Conciergerie. Parisians understood what that meant. The Conciergerie was not just another prison. It was the last station before death. It was the place where prisoners waited while the machinery of revolutionary justice prepared their names for the scaffold. Marie Antoinette entered as prisoner number 280. That number mattered. It was the first act of erasure. A queen has a title. A mother has a name. A prisoner has a number. Her cell was small, damp, and watched. Moisture clung to the walls. The air smelled of stone, straw, old water, and human fear. A weak candle gave the room its only softness. A simple bed or straw mattress served as rest. A wooden screen offered a small suggestion of privacy, but even this was almost meaningless. 2 guards watched her day and night. She slept under their eyes. She ate under their eyes. She dressed under their eyes. This was not only security, it was humiliation. At Versailles, Marie Antoinette had also been watched, but in the ceremonial way of monarchy. Her rising, dressing, meals, appearances, and movements had been surrounded by etiquette. Visibility had once confirmed her rank. In the Conciergerie, visibility destroyed it. The message was clear. You are no longer sacred. You are no longer untouchable. You are no longer above the people. You are only a condemned body waiting for judgment. The revolution did not need to say this aloud. The cell said it for them. The guards said it. The dripping walls said it. The locked door said it. Marie Antoinette had been moved from the world of royal theater into the theater of revolutionary punishment. And every hour inside that cell was designed to remind her that the old world could not protect her anymore. Time inside the Conciergerie did not move like ordinary time. It dripped. Water on stone, boots in the corridor, keys turning in locks, whispers from prisoners who knew they might be next. The distant sound of Paris moving on without her. Outside, the city shouted about bread, politics, traitors, war and justice. Inside the cell, Marie Antoinette lived inside a narrower world. Candlelight, damp straw, guard eyes, and memory. Memory became both comfort and torture. She remembered her children laughing in palace gardens. She remembered the rooms of Versailles bright with music, mirrors, silk and ceremony. She remembered the sound of court voices, the weight of embroidered gowns, the strange unreality of a life built on ritual, while anger gathered beyond the palace gates. But one memory overpowered all the others: her son. The moment he was taken from her replayed again and again. His fear, her helplessness, the knowledge that she would never hold him again. In that cell, she was not primarily a fallen queen. She was a mother whose child had been taken by a political system that saw him not as a boy, but as a threat. Among the few objects she tried to keep close were small relics of her children, a remembered portrait, a lock of hair, fragments of motherhood that the prison could not fully seize. These objects mattered because they were not royal, they were human. Her only real kindness came from Rosalie Lamolière, a young servant assigned to attend her. Rosalie would later become one of the fragile human windows into Marie Antoinette's final days. Through her, we do not see the monster of revolutionary pamphlets or the glittering queen of Versailles. We see a tired woman, grieving, ill, watched, and still trying to remain composed. When Marie Antoinette spoke of her children, the royal mask fell away. That is important. History often traps her between two false images: the heartless queen who cared nothing for the poor, and the perfect martyr who did no wrong. Both images are too simple. She was a privileged woman, shaped by a collapsing monarchy. She was politically limited, often misunderstood, sometimes blind to the depth of public suffering. She was also the victim of vicious propaganda, misogynistic hatred, and a revolutionary system that needed her to become more monstrous than any human being could actually be. Inside that cell, she was neither saint nor demon. She was a mother waiting for death. Her captors mocked her. They reminded her of her fallen rank. They laughed about the monarchy. They used crude insults to pull a reaction from her. Each taunt was meant to make her appear broken, bitter, or guilty. But she answered with restraint, not because she did not suffer, because restraint was one of the last things left under her control. When a person has lost power, silence can become armor. A quiet voice can become resistance. A controlled face can deny the enemy the satisfaction of collapse. She could not command the guards. She could not open the door. She could not see her children. She could not choose the judges, but she could refuse to give them the shattered queen they wanted. That is what formed in the dampness of that cell, not the glittering dignity of Versailles, but something colder and stronger, the dignity of a woman who had lost everything except the way she would endure. On October 14, 1793, the door opened again. This time, Marie Antoinette was not being moved to another cell. She was being taken to trial. But the word trial gives the scene more fairness than it deserves. The revolutionary tribunal was not truly searching for truth. It was staging a political necessity. France was at war. The Republic was under pressure. Enemies were everywhere, real and imagined. The monarchy had been abolished, but its ghost still terrified the new order. The revolution needed certainty, and certainty demanded a body. Marie Antoinette became that body. She was led through the corridors of the Conciergerie, surrounded by armed soldiers. The stone passageways echoed with boots. People watched from corners and doorways. Some spat insults. Some stared. Some looked at her as if history itself were walking past them in a black mourning dress. She wore the same dark clothing she had used to mourn her executed husband. No jewels, no crown, no royal brightness, only a pale, exhausted woman carrying the weight of a nation's hatred into a room where judgment had already been prepared. The tribunal was crowded. Spectators pressed in. The atmosphere felt less like law and more like theater. The prosecutor, Antoine Quentin Fouquier-Tinville, delivered the accusations with the force of a man speaking not only to judges, but to history. Treason, conspiracy with foreign enemies, wasting the nation's money, corrupting France. Some charges belonged to the political reality of the time. Marie Antoinette had been tied to foreign courts. The monarchy had collapsed under resentment, war, debt, and distrust. But many accusations against her had been fed for years by pamphlets, rumors, exaggerations, and public hatred. The revolution did not only accuse her of crimes, it accused her of being the face of a dying world. Witnesses appeared. Some repeated stories from hostile pamphlets. Some offered claims shaped by rumor. Some spoke as if they were feeding the crowd what it had already come to hear. The courtroom responded with jeers, murmurs, and satisfaction. Then came the accusation that froze the room. The prosecution raised the most obscene charge, that Marie Antoinette had abused her own son. It was not simply an accusation, it was a weapon. Her son, taken from her and placed under revolutionary control, had been pressured into statements he could not truly understand. Those statements were then turned against the mother, who had already been destroyed by losing him. Even in a room filled with hatred, the cruelty of the charge caused a change in the air. Some revolutionaries lowered their eyes. Some spectators fell silent. There are accusations so vile that even enemies feel their own humanity disturbed. Marie Antoinette did not answer at first. Then she rose. She did not turn to the judges. She did not turn to the prosecutor. She turned toward the women in the room. And with a voice that cut through the noise, she appealed to the mothers present. She did not need a long defense. Motherhood itself answered. For one moment, the pamphlet monster vanished. The hated Austrian disappeared. The widow Capet, the traitor, the symbol of royal corruption, all of it cracked. What remained was a mother whose child had been used to break her. The shift in the room was immediate. Murmurs spread. Some women were moved. The prosecutor, sensing the danger of sympathy, forced the proceedings onward. But something had happened that the tribunal could not fully control. Marie Antoinette had reminded the crowd that the symbol was still human. It did not save her. Nothing could save her. But it gave her one of the only victories possible in that room. She forced the revolution to look, for 1 second, at the woman it was trying to erase. The trial dragged on for 2 days. Every question, every witness, every accusation moved toward the same end. The revolution did not need her acquitted. It did not even need her fairly judged. It needed her condemned. At dawn on October 16th, the verdict came. Guilty of high treason. The sentence, death by guillotine. When asked if she had anything to add, Marie Antoinette did not beg. She did not rage. She did not try to perform innocence before a court that had no intention of hearing it. She understood that words had reached their limit. The machinery had completed its work. She was taken back to her cell for the final hours of her life. Night settled over Paris on October 15 and into the early morning of October 16. In cell number 280, silence became almost physical. The dripping water sounded like a clock. The candle trembled. The guards waited. Rosalie stayed near, grieving in the restrained way of someone who knew too much and could do too little. Marie Antoinette refused food. Her body was nearly finished with the world. Then she took up a pen. Her final letter was addressed to Madame Elisabeth, her sister-in-law. It was not a political speech. It was not a demand for revenge. It was not an argument with the revolution. It was a farewell. She wrote of forgiveness. She wrote of faith. She wrote of her daughter. She wrote of her son, the child whose forced words had been used to wound her in court. She did not blame him. She understood that adults had used him as an instrument of torment. That may be one of the most painful details of her final days. The revolution had tried to turn her child into a weapon. She answered by refusing to hate him. Her last letter restored the human truth that the tribunal had tried to bury. beneath the political symbol, was a mother still loving her children, even when the machinery of history had torn them from her. But the letter never reached Madame Elisabeth. It was seized. Even her final tenderness was intercepted by the system that had consumed her life. When she placed the pen down, the candle was nearly spent. Wax had pooled on the table. Rosalie wept. Marie Antoinette tried to comfort her. In that reversal, the condemned woman became the one offering strength. Before dawn, she prayed, not for the restoration of her throne, not for revenge, for her children. At that moment, there was no Versailles, no court, no queenly theatre. There was only a mother preparing to die. And as Paris woke outside, speaking of politics, bread, and the coming execution, the woman once at the center of Europe's grandest court sat quietly in a damp cell, waiting for the final act of public humiliation to begin. At sunrise, the bolts sounded. The door opened. The officials entered with the cold efficiency of men performing a routine. A priest was present. Guards stood ready. The executioner, Charles-Henri Sanson, arrived with his assistants. Everything that followed was part of the ritual of stripping her last fragments of dignity. First, the clothing. She was ordered to remove the black mourning dress she had worn since her husband's death. That dress was not only fabric, it was memory. It connected her to Louis XVI, to widowhood, to grief, to the last identity the revolution had not fully taken. She asked for privacy. Even that became a humiliation. A screen offered little protection. Men remained near enough to remind her that even the smallest human modesty was now under their control. She was given a plain white garment, the clothing of the condemned. The contrast was brutal. The woman who had once worn silk, embroidery, and jewels now stood in rough white linen, not as queen, not as widow, as a prisoner prepared for death. Then came the hair. Sanson's assistants cut it so the execution could proceed. Her hair, once part of the image of royal femininity and courtly presence, had turned pale in prison, marked by grief, illness, and time. It fell away in uneven strands. The cutting was practical, but it was also symbolic. Another removal, another erasure, another step from person to condemned body. Then came the binding of her hands. Marie Antoinette was startled. Her husband had not been bound in quite the same public way. She asked why. No answer was needed. The revolution had no intention of granting her the softer dignity given to the dead king. The rope tightened around her wrists. The message was again clear. No exception, no queen, no special carriage, no royal privacy, no final softness. Only the condemned woman and the eyes of France. Before leaving, she said goodbye to Rosalie. The young servant could barely hold herself together. Marie Antoinette, the one walking toward execution, offered comfort instead of demanding it. That was not royal performance. That was human strength. Then she walked through the corridors of the Conciergerie. Whispers followed. Some guards removed their hats. Perhaps from habit, perhaps from discomfort, perhaps because even after everything, something in her composure commanded a silence no law could order. At the gate, she saw the cart. Not a closed carriage, an open wooden cart. Her husband had been carried to his death with more protection from public view. Marie Antoinette would be displayed. The revolution wanted the people to see her fall with their own eyes. She climbed in. Her hands were bound. Her hair was cut. Her white garment moved in the cold morning air. The cart began to roll. The journey to the Place de la Révolution lasted more than an hour. It was not transportation. It was a reversed coronation. Once, the Queen of France had moved through public spaces surrounded by signs of monarchy. Guards, ceremony, fine clothing, controlled access, reverent distance. Now she moved through Paris in a rough cart, exposed to the same city that had learned to hate her. The streets filled. People pushed toward windows, balconies, doorways, and corners. Some came for justice. Some came for spectacle. Some came because history was passing through the street, and no one wanted to be absent. The cart creaked over stones. The horses moved slowly. The crowd shouted, "There goes the Austrian, Widow Capet, the thief of France." Some hurled insults. Some laughed. Some stared with cold fascination. Others watched in silence, perhaps unsettled by what they saw. Because Marie Antoinette did not collapse. She did not scream. She did not beg. She did not curse the crowd. She stood upright, pale and exhausted, but composed. That composure disturbed people more than tears might have. The crowd had come to see a hated queen broken. They wanted humiliation made visible. They wanted the symbol of monarchy reduced before their eyes. But she denied them the final spectacle of collapse. Along the route, the painter Jacques-Louis David reportedly sketched her. The image associated with that moment is severe and unforgettable. The cropped hair, the bound hands, the rigid posture, the face stripped of courtly softness. It is not a flattering royal portrait. It is something more haunting. A woman reduced by history, yet not fully conquered by it. The cart moved through streets where she had once been imagined as the cause of France's misery. For years, pamphlets had made her into a creature of excess, foreignness, corruption, and moral decay. Now the living woman passed before people who knew the legend better than the person. That is one of the dangers of political hatred. The image becomes easier to punish than the human being. Some market women watched her closely. These were the kinds of women whose anger had helped carry the revolution into Versailles. Women who had known hunger. Women who had marched for bread. Women who had reasons to hate the old system. And yet even among them, her calm created unease. She does not look afraid, one might have whispered. Perhaps she had passed beyond fear. Perhaps she had nothing left for fear to threaten. As the cart neared the square, the noise grew thicker. The guillotine stood ahead, its frame rising against the sky. The crowd pressed in. The revolution had built a new kind of altar, and the queen was being brought to it. For France, this was justice. For the monarchy, it was catastrophe. For Marie Antoinette, it was the end of waiting. The cart stopped. Sanson stepped down. One of his assistants offered help. She refused. Bound, weakened, and watched by thousands, she chose to climb down herself. That small act mattered. When a person has been stripped of almost everything, even the manner of stepping from a cart can become an act of self-possession. She walked toward the scaffold. The square roared. The guillotine waited. Marie Antoinette ascended the steps. Her hands were tied, making each movement more difficult. The crowd watched every gesture. The executioner and assistants moved with practiced efficiency. Then, at the edge of death, came the small moment that outlived the spectacle. As she moved, she accidentally stepped on the executioner's foot. She turned and apologized. "Pardon me, sir. I did not do it on purpose." No curse, no final speech, no plea, no dramatic condemnation of France. An apology. That is why the sentence survived. It was almost too small for history, yet too human to disappear. After all the accusations, all the hatred, all the stripping of dignity, all the political theater, Marie Antoinette answered an accidental wrong with courtesy. That was her final victory. Not political, not royal, human. The execution followed. The blade fell. The crowd cheered. For many, the old world had been defeated. The foreign queen was gone. The republic had claimed its justice. The symbol had been destroyed. But symbols are dangerous after death. They do not always obey the people who create them. Marie Antoinette's body was taken away without royal ceremony. She was buried in the Madeleine Cemetery, placed among others who had died in the revolutionary machinery. No grand tomb, no royal procession, no flowers, no immediate restoration of name or dignity. Just earth, silence, anonymity. The revolution believed it had ended her story, but it had not. Marie Antoinette's memory did not stay buried. Years passed. The revolution devoured many of its own makers. Robespierre fell. The terror ended. France changed governments, symbols, loyalties and stories. The guillotine that had seemed like the voice of history became, for many, a sign of how quickly justice can turn into blood. Marie Antoinette's remains were later recovered and reburied with royal ceremony at Saint-Denis, the resting place of French kings and queens. The woman thrown into the earth as a criminal was restored, at least ceremonially, to the monarchy's memory. But even that did not settle her story, because Marie Antoinette has never belonged to one version of history. Revolutionary propaganda turned her into a monster. Royalist memory turned her into a martyr. Popular culture turned her into an icon of luxury. Modern history sees something more complicated: a privileged queen, a foreign woman in a hostile court, a political symbol, a flawed human being, a mother, a prisoner, and finally, a victim of a revolutionary system that needed her death to mean more than death. That is what history often tries to hide. Not that Marie Antoinette suffered, but that her suffering was politically useful. Her humiliation served a purpose. It told France that monarchy had been defeated. It told the crowd that the old hierarchy had been overturned. It allowed the revolution to place years of hunger, inequality, resentment, and war onto one woman's body. But that kind of symbolic punishment has a terrible cost. It simplifies. It erases complexity. It teaches people to hate an image instead of understanding a system. Marie Antoinette did not create all of France's suffering. She did not invent the financial crisis. She did not alone produce hunger, debt, war, corruption, or the failures of Bourbon rule. But she became the face of those failures, because history often finds it easier to punish a face than to untangle a system. That is the warning in her final days. A society can begin with demands for justice and still become cruel. A revolution can speak of human dignity while stripping dignity from its enemies. A crowd can believe it is watching righteousness while participating in humiliation. And a woman can be so heavily turned into a symbol that her humanity becomes the last thing anyone wants to see. But it kept appearing. In the cell when she whispered about her children, in the courtroom when she appealed to mothers, in the final letter when she forgave her son, in the cart when she refused to collapse, at the scaffold when she apologized to the executioner. Those moments did not make her a saint, they made her human, and that was enough to disturb the story her enemies had built. The final days of Marie Antoinette reveal the horror of an era when justice and vengeance became dangerously close. France had real suffering. The old regime had real failures. The monarchy had lived above a nation struggling with hunger, debt, inequality, and anger. The revolution did not rise from nothing. It rose from conditions that had become impossible to ignore. But by 1793, Marie Antoinette was no longer being judged as one complicated person inside that system. She had become the system's chosen body. The revolution locked her in a damp cell. It watched her without privacy. It separated her from her children. It used her motherhood against her. It condemned her in a trial shaped by politics. It cut her hair. It bound her hands. It dressed her in white. It carried her through Paris in an open cart. It killed her before a crowd. And then it buried her without honor, as if the woman could vanish with the symbol. But she did not vanish. The spectacle meant to erase her, instead preserved her final dignity. That is the strange power of her last days. The more the system tried to reduce her, the more her small human gestures survived. The mother's appeal, the final letter, the calm in the cart, the apology at the scaffold. Her final crown was not gold, it was composure. It was the refusal to let cruelty decide the manner of her soul. Marie Antoinette was not the monster her enemies imagined. She was not the flawless saint her defenders later created. She was a woman caught at the crossing point of monarchy, propaganda, motherhood, revolution, class rage, and public vengeance. And in that crossing point, the world watched her die. History remembers the guillotine because it is easy to picture, but the deeper horror happened before the blade. It happened when a human being became a symbol, when a mother became an accusation, when a prisoner became a spectacle, when a crowd was taught to cheer. That is why the final days of Marie Antoinette still matter. They warn us that cruelty does not always come dressed as evil. Sometimes it calls itself justice. Sometimes it speaks for the people. Sometimes it stands in a courtroom. Sometimes it rides in an open cart. And sometimes, before the blade ever falls, it has already done its deepest work. It has taught a nation to look at a woman and see only what it needs to destroy.